Thank you to all of the witnesses for taking the time to be with us today. I'd like to start with you, Mayor Gillingham. You alluded to it in your opening remarks. Explain this bulletin you've had to start doing for repeat offenders, please.
Well, I've been sharing actual cases, historic cases, so as not to jeopardize any matters that would be currently before the courts. And so far, I've released 5 of them, and the information is taken, we're being assisted right now with the Winnipeg Police Service and information of historical cases. And so far, as I said a moment ago, of the 5 cases I've shared, they're all cases where people have breached their court orders and gone on to commit violent crime. One was, the first one I released was, the final charge that led to a conviction was a carjacking with a firearm, assault. That individual had been had 24 violent offenses, prior offenses, and had breached court orders 12 times. Another individual convicted finally of homicide, convicted of 8 prior violent offenses with 9 failures to comply. So these are cases where individuals have been repeatedly granted bail, and while they're out on bail, they're committing more crime. So from my point of view as a mayor of Winnipeg, is we need to continue and other mayors to call for the kind of changes and changes that will prevent that from happening, to protect individuals, businesses, community members from that kind of repeat violence from individuals who have a history of disregarding their bail conditions. And so that is at the heart of what I'm hoping that we see changed in the upcoming legislation. And
you've been speaking in your comments specifically about repeat violent offenders. You mentioned one case in Manitoba, the Hollow Water Reservation. Someone who stabbed his sister, injured 7 others, was out on bail at the time of it. Just a truly horrific case. And there is also an issue with non-violent offenders that are subject to the same revolving door bail system. I was hoping you could speak to the effect that has on public safety, on businesses. I know this is something where it's often not been spoken about by witnesses here, but it is a predictor of violent criminality. People that may be out on bail for repeat vandalism, arson, and then are arrested the next time for something violent. Is this something you're seeing in Winnipeg?
We are, and one of the cases I know that talked about recently was an individual who was involved in theft and was confronted by a security guard, and that turned violent immediately. A weapon was produced, and so what started as a theft turned out to be another violent incident. What happens, though, too, is that when members of my community are talking to me, they're losing faith in the justice system when they see the same individuals, either repeat violent offenders, out on the street committing more crime, or they see those involved in theft over and over again. And I said in my letter to Minister Fraser that was put together with myself and Mayors Knox of Portage Prairie, Mayor Fawcett of Brandon, Manitoba, and Kathy Valentino, the head of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, we said to them to Minister Fraser, we can't ignore the small things, because the small things become the big things if left unchecked. Mm-hmm. And so I'm all for diversion. I'm absolutely for rehabilitation. But when there's violent incidents, we need to use all tools possible to separate the perpetrators from the potential victims, and those who would continue have a history of disregarding their court orders, who we think will go on likely to quite possibly to repeat a violent offense. We've got to use whatever tools possible to separate those individuals from the public.
Thank you. Mr. Gemmell, you mentioned this is a national issue. Now, this tracks with what I've been hearing. There is no city or town or community that is unaffected by this in any province, northern, southern, French, English, large, small, urban, rural. You said very clearly it's a national problem. The Liberal members on this committee have been trying to put a lot of the blame on provincial governments, saying that our issues are really with provinces here. You're saying this is a national issue. You're saying there is federal legislation that is needed to solve this bail problem.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Your mic.
Do I need to turn it on? It's on there. Thanks for the question. Certainly, we are seeing this issue as national in scope. FCM represents 2,100 municipal governments of all sizes in every province and territory, and we are hearing about this issue from members in communities of all sizes and in all regions. In terms of the responsibility, to address this, it's clearly a shared responsibility. There's a role for the federal government, for the provinces and territories, and on the policing side, clearly a role for municipalities. What municipalities are saying is local law enforcement have their hands tied. They're not able to address this issue without further changes to the criminal code and without further changes improving the capacity of the justice system at the provincial level. So there is a shared responsibility there, and we are looking for leadership from the federal government.
When you hear from municipalities, and they're, of course, dealing with police service boards, they're dealing with police chiefs, they're drawing a line between, largely in the conversations I've had, C-75 from a previous parliament on this, and that included the principle of restraint, this idea that offenders need to be released at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Does the FCM support repealing the principle of restraint from the criminal code?
Yeah, FCM doesn't have a position on that specifically. Our focus has been on strengthening the criminal code to make it harder for repeat violent offenders to be released on bail. We don't think that's currently happening. There's evidence to suggest that that's not happening now, and that there are changes needed to make that more difficult. We also think that there's a role for the federal government to play in terms of gathering and compiling data and providing guidance to the provinces on best practices for making decisions on bail and monitoring bail conditions. It's a risk-based model, and the approach needs to be based on the best available evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney.